I built my restaurant empire after my family threw me out. Now my sister, ex-boyfriend, and parents are furious I banned them for life after they tried to eat free and left without paying. Hello dear ones. Please subscribe, comment a quick hi, and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's continue this journey together. I still remember the exact moment my mother told me I was worthless. I was 24, working 3 jobs trying to make something of myself. My father had disappeared years earlier. Another man who couldn't handle the weight of responsibility. My older sister Tasha had become Mom's favorite by default, coasting on our family's connections while I broke my back. That Tuesday evening, I walked into our small apartment with leftover food from the restaurant where I'd been prepping since 5 in the morning. I'd saved money for 3 years, watching every dollar, visualizing my dream. My younger brother Deshaun was on the couch and Mom sat at the kitchen table, her face tight with an emotion I couldn't quite name. "You need to move out," Mom said, no preamble, no conversation. "What?" I set down my bags, confused. "You're bringing bad energy here. Your sister has an opportunity for an engagement and you being here with your ambitions, it's making our family look desperate. Like we're hustling." The word carried so much disdain, as if I'd been committing crimes instead of working legitimate jobs. Tasha had texted Mom that I'd rejected a man she'd set me up with. A wealthy businessman twice my age who treated women like possessions. I'd said no. Apparently that was a betrayal. "I take care of this house," I whispered. "Not anymore," Mom said, turning away. That was the inciting incident that changed everything. That night I didn't cry. I packed a duffel bag, left the keys on the counter, and walked out into the humid night with nothing but a dream and $8,000 in a bank account. I didn't know it then, but I was walking toward my empire. The first month destroyed me in ways I didn't expect. I found a room in a boarding house run by an older woman named Mrs. Patterson, who barely asked questions and accepted cash payments without judgment. $80 a week for a space with a twin bed and a window facing an alley. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I worked doubles at the restaurant where I'd been prepping, cleaned offices at night, and spent my rare free hours developing the business plan I'd been sketching for 2 years. The restaurants I worked in were mediocre, overpriced, under-inspired, managed by people who'd inherited their positions rather than earned them. I knew I could do better. Mrs. Patterson became my unlikely confidant. She'd been a chef decades ago, back when women of color had even fewer opportunities. She'd see me at 2 in the morning, writing recipes by candlelight to save on electricity, and she'd bring me herbal tea without asking. "Baby, you got that look," she said one night. "That look of someone who's gonna change things." I didn't respond, but I appreciated that she saw me. My family had stopped calling after the first week. No apologies, no check-ins. Nothing. Tasha posted pictures on social media of her engagement party, wearing the expensive dress Mom had always refused to buy me, surrounded by people who'd never had to work for anything. The rejection hardened something in me, but it also clarified my vision. I wasn't building a restaurant for approval anymore. I was building it for survival. For dignity. For the right to say no without losing everything. After 4 months, I'd saved $6,000 beyond my essentials. I started scouting locations obsessively, learning commercial real estate, understanding lease agreements, calculating margins. Every detail mattered because I wouldn't get a second chance at this. Banks wouldn't loan to a 24-year-old black woman with no credit history and a boarding house address. I'd have to bootstrap every penny. Mrs. Patterson let me use her kitchen on Sunday afternoons to develop recipes. That's where it started. My real secret. That's where I became unstoppable. 6 months after leaving home, I was working a catering event where I met Matthew, a restaurant consultant who actually listened when I talked. He wasn't handsome in a conventional way, but he had this intensity, this genuine interest in people's stories. He asked me about my vision while we were plating desserts, and instead of giving a polished answer, I just unraveled. I told him about my family, about being expendable, about how I'd saved every penny I had, about the business plan I'd memorized front to back. And instead of offering pity, Matthew asked the hard questions. "Where's your commercial kitchen space?" he asked. "I can't afford it yet." "Do you have investors?" "I have myself." Then you need a partner with capital or a different approach, he said simply. Your food is extraordinary, but passion doesn't pay rent on a commercial space. That conversation haunted me because he was right. I was stuck. I couldn't grow beyond recipes in Mrs. Patterson's kitchen. I needed something impossible. Money I didn't have or connections I'd burned by refusing to play the game my family demanded. 2 weeks later, my sister Tasha showed up at the restaurant where I worked, the one place I thought was safe. She looked polished and expensive, wearing the engagement ring that must have cost more than my annual income. Behind her were Mom and my younger brother Deshaun. My chest went cold. We need to talk, Tasha said, her voice sweet and dangerous. We went to the back storage room. That's where she told me the truth, or rather the lie that had become family truth. Mom's sick, Tasha said. Really sick. She's been hiding it since you left. She needs you to come home, apologize, and help pay for treatment. I felt my reality tilt. What? Why didn't anyone? Because you left us, Mom interrupted, her voice sharp. You abandoned us like your father. And now when we need you, you should come running, grateful for the opportunity to make it right. I'll help, I said immediately, my hurt momentarily forgotten. What does she need? How much? $50,000, Mom said. 50,000. All the money I'd saved. Everything. And you move back home, take the job with that businessman Tasha found for you, and we forget this foolishness about a restaurant. That was the moment something broke inside me. Not in a fragile way. In a way that was actually breaking free. No, I said. The word felt strange in my mouth, foreign and powerful. No. My mother stared at me like I'd spoken a language she didn't understand. I won't do it, I continued, my voice steady. If you're sick, we'll figure out hospital payment plans, programs, something real. But I'm not giving you $50,000 so you can control me with medical guilt, and I'm not abandoning my dreams to be someone's property. Tasha laughed, that fake laugh she'd perfected over years of performing. You think you're better than us now? After 2 years of working service jobs. I think I'm better at protecting myself than I used to be, I said. And I think this is manipulation disguised as family. Baby, you don't understand, my brother Deshaun said quietly. He'd always been the mediator, the one who tried to keep peace. Mom really is struggling. She needs help. Then we'll help, I said, looking at him. But not like this. Not with conditions attached. Not if it means erasing everything I'm building. My mother's face went hard. Then you're no daughter of mine. You know what? Tasha was right about you. You were always ungrateful, always reaching above your station. You were a burden we finally got rid of. The words were meant to destroy me. They were delivered with the precision of someone who knew exactly where to cut. And for a second they landed. My hands shook. My eyes burned. But something was different now. I wasn't the girl they'd kicked out. I'd been tested and hadn't broken. I'd worked without their validation and discovered I didn't need it. I hope she's okay, I said quietly. I truly do. But I won't be guilted into sacrificing my life. I won't. And if that means I'm not your daughter anymore, then I guess I'm finally free. I walked back to the kitchen before anyone could respond. I didn't cry until the walk home. But those weren't tears of despair anymore. They were tears of rage, the kind that fuel revolutions. Matthew found me 3 days later. I'd told him what happened, and instead of offering sympathy, he offered something better. A solution. My uncle owns a commercial space, he said. It's been sitting empty for 8 months. He's desperate to rent it, so desperate he'll work with someone unconventional. But here's the catch. He'll need to see a real business plan, financial projections, and proof that you're serious. I don't have proof, I said. I have recipes and determination. Then we'll make proof, Matthew said. I'll help you put together a business plan that makes investors see what I see. But you have to understand, this isn't charity. This is a partnership. I believe in you, but I also believe in ROI. That's how Matthew became my first real partner. Not romantic, though there was undercurrent there, but business. Real and professional. He spent 3 weeks helping me formalize everything I'd been doing in my head. Recipes converted to cost analyses. My vision converted to a market analysis. My dream converted to something that could be financed. His uncle, whose name was Richard, was a severe man who looked at my 50-page business plan like he was examining evidence at a crime scene. He flipped through it slowly, asking aggressive questions about supply chains, labor costs, and my contingency plans if we didn't hit sales projections. Why should I rent to a 25-year-old with zero restaurant experience and no collateral? He asked bluntly. Because I have something most people who've been given everything don't have, I answered. I have nothing to lose and everything to prove. I'm not doing this for ego or legacy. I'm doing this because my survival depends on it. Richard smiled, actually smiled for the first time. 6 months free rent if you sign a 3-year lease at 30% above market rate after the trial period, he said. And I want 10% equity in your profits for 3 years as a condition of the space. It wasn't perfect, but it was a door opening. We signed the papers on a Friday in November. I had 3 months to build a restaurant from nothing and turn it into something profitable. I had $12,000 in my savings account and a commercial kitchen that smelled like failure and abandoned dreams. I had everything I needed. The first month was a baptism by fire. I'd never managed contractors before, never negotiated supply deals, never done payroll. Matthew was there almost every day teaching me while I taught him about food. We were building something from pure will and desperation. Mrs. Patterson came by one afternoon and gasped when she saw the space. A long, narrow room with yellowed walls and a kitchen that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1987. Without asking permission, she started helping. She brought cleaning supplies, recruited 3 of her neighbors, and by that evening, we'd stripped the space down to its bones. I couldn't pay them much, so I cooked. Every night, I made meals for everyone helping me. Soul food classics with modern twists, the kind of food that made people weep because it tasted like home and hope mixed together. Mrs. Patterson tasted the braised short ribs with charred Brussels sprouts and began to cry. "Baby, this is genius," she said. "This is your gift right here." The restaurant opened with zero marketing budget. Just word of mouth from the people who'd helped build it. The first night we had 7 customers. The second night 12. By week 3 we were turning people away. I named it Resilience. Simple. Honest. A name that meant something. But success brought complications. My family found out about the restaurant through social media. Someone I didn't know well had posted pictures, tagged the location. Suddenly my phone was ringing. Voice messages filled with sudden concern, sudden pride, sudden everything. "We always knew you had it in you," Tasha said in one message, her voice syrupy sweet. "Your mother is so proud," Mom said in another. "Come visit. We want to celebrate with you." They wanted to celebrate. After telling me I was ungrateful. After medical guilt. After making me feel like a burden. Now suddenly they wanted to celebrate. I didn't respond. I kept working. By month 4, Resilience was profitable. By month 6, we were at capacity most nights. By month 9, I'd expanded to a second location. Matthew suggested I bring on an actual business manager so I could focus on the food. I hesitated. Trusting people had become difficult. "You can't do this alone," Matthew said. "And you won't need to." He was right, but admitting that terrified me. By year 2, I had 3 successful locations and a waiting list for reservations that stretched weeks into the future. The local food media called me the emerging culinary voice of the generation. Food bloggers described my meals as transcendent. Investment firms were suddenly interested. And that's when my family showed up at my flagship restaurant. Unannounced, dressed expensively, acting like they'd been proud of me all along. It was a Saturday night, fully booked. I was in the kitchen focused when the manager came back. "Your family is here," he said carefully. "They're asking for your personal attention." My hands went cold. I should have felt something. Anger, sadness, vindication. Instead, I felt numb. I walked out and saw them at a corner table. My mother looked smaller than I remembered, worn down by whatever had actually been making her sick. Tasha was there with her new husband, already on her second glass of wine. Deshawn looked uncomfortable, like he'd been pressured into coming. "There she is." Mom stood up, arms open. "Our little genius." I didn't hug her. I stood across from them, still in my chef's whites, my hair wrapped in a headscarf. "Thank you for coming," I said professionally. "How was your evening?" The coldness of it landed. Tasha's smile faltered. "Honey, we wanted to celebrate you," Mom said, her voice taking on that familiar sweet tone that preceded manipulation. "The business looks so successful. You must be making incredible money." "The business is doing well," I said carefully. "That's wonderful," Mom continued. "As your father passed last month. We're handling his medical bills and funeral costs, and we thought maybe you could help." Family supports family. There was always another reason. Another ask. Another hook. My father. The man who'd left us when I was 7, who'd never sent child support, who'd been absent from every important moment of my life. And now, suddenly, his death was supposed to motivate me to provide for people who'd once told me I was worthless. "I'm sorry for your loss," I said, and I meant it technically. "The business is reinvesting heavily in expansion, so I don't have capital available for family emergencies." "But you're millionaires now," Tasha said, the resentment finally bleeding through her performance. "You can't spare anything for us?" "I can spare respect for boundaries," I said. "I can spare honesty. But I can't spare what I don't have emotional capacity to give." "So this is how you treat your family?" Mom's voice hardened. "After everything we've done for you?" Everything they'd done for me had been a transaction. I was only valuable when I was useful, and now that I was succeeding, suddenly I owed them. "I'd like to comp your meal tonight," I said. "As family. But I won't be hosting you further." I walked back to the kitchen before they could respond. I didn't look back. That moment, small as it seemed, was when I stopped waiting for them to change and fully accepted that they wouldn't. By year 3, Resilience had become a destination restaurant. Food critics drove hours to eat at my tables. I'd been interviewed for magazines, approached by production companies about television deals, offered partnerships by celebrity chefs who suddenly wanted to align themselves with my success. Life was moving fast. Too fast, maybe. I was 28 years old and building something that would outlast me. And I was doing it without the validation of the people who should have supported me all along. That validation, I'd learned, wasn't coming. Matthew had been instrumental to everything, and somewhere along the way our professional partnership had become something more intimate. We weren't dating exactly, but we were close. He knew all of me. The scared girl who'd been thrown out, the determined woman who'd refused to break, the successful entrepreneur I was becoming. He'd seen all of it. "You should think about a cookbook," he said one night as we were reviewing expansion plans. "Your story, your recipes, your journey. It would sell." "I don't want to relive everything," I said. "I know," he said gently. "But other people need to know that what you did is possible. That reinvention doesn't require inherited wealth or family connections. That sometimes the people who know you best don't know your worth." He was right. But talking about it meant diving back into the pain. It was during the development of that cookbook that things got complicated. My family saw the early interviews, the promotional materials, the narrative of being thrown out and abandoned. Suddenly they were offended. They were claiming I was rewriting history, being dramatic, damaging family reputation. My mother called, furious. "You can't tell people we kicked you out," she said. "That makes us look cruel." "You did kick me out," I said calmly. "We set boundaries. There's a difference." "Setting boundaries would have looked like a conversation," I replied. "What you did was rejection. What you did was deciding I was disposable. And now you're upset that I'm telling the truth." "This is ingratitude," Mom said. "You're throwing away your family for a narrative." "I'm claiming my truth," I said. "And yes, that comes before your comfort." I hung up. But the calls didn't stop. The messages didn't stop. My siblings started trying to contact me separately, trying to find a weakness, an angle, some way to convince me to keep the family secrets. Deshaun was the one who broke my heart a little more. "Mom's really struggling," he said over the phone. "Emotionally. She feels abandoned." "She abandoned me first," I said. "I know, but... Dan, I love you. But I can't set myself on fire to keep other people warm. Not anymore. I just can't." He was silent for a long moment. I understand, he said finally. I just wish it was different. So do I told him. But sometimes wishes don't change reality. The cookbook came out on a Tuesday morning in spring. I was nervous, proud, terrified. It wasn't just recipes. It was my journey from the night I was thrown out to the day I signed the lease for my third restaurant. It was raw and honest, and I'd worried it was too much. The response was overwhelming. Pre-orders had exceeded expectations. Major retailers put it on their shelves. People started emailing me stories about how my experience had given them permission to walk away from toxic situations, to dream bigger, to value themselves more. On day 3 of the cookbook's release, Tasha showed up at Resilience during dinner service. She was alone, no husband, no mom, no armor. She looked smaller somehow. "We need to talk," she said to the hostess who called me over. I was prepping in the kitchen, but I came out. Tasha sat in a corner booth, her hands shaking slightly. "I'm sorry," she said without preamble. I sat down slowly. "What are you sorry for specifically?" "For setting you up. For making Mom think you were abandoning us. For letting them throw you out without defending you. For..." She broke off, tears sliding down her face. "For everything. For being too scared to be your sister instead of their accomplice." I didn't know what to feel. The apology was real, I could sense that. But it didn't undo anything. "Why now?" I asked. "Because I read your book," she said. "And I realized I've become exactly like Mom. Transactional. I've been manipulating people to get what I want, and I have nothing that actually matters. And you built everything from nothing, and somehow you still have integrity. How did you do that?" "I had to," I said simply. "Because if I lost myself to bitterness, they still won. If I became like them, they still won." Tasha cried harder. "I want to be better." "Then be better," I said. "But understand that I can't trust you quickly. That ship sailed when you participated in making me feel worthless." "I know," she whispered. "I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. And I'm proud of you. Like actually proud." I appreciated the sentiment. I wasn't ready to rebuild the relationship. But I wasn't going to refuse the apology. What I didn't know was that her apology was only the beginning of much more complicated things. A week after Tasha's apology, Matthew came to me with a problem that would change everything. "My uncle," he said carefully, "is having financial difficulties. He made some bad investments. He's going to lose the building." My chest went tight. The building was everything. It was home base for my entire operation. 2 of my 3 restaurants operated out of spaces I'd negotiated through Richard, who'd become more like family than my actual family. "What does that mean?" I asked, though I already knew. "It means he's selling the building. Next month. And the new owners are a development company planning to demolish it for condos." I felt the ground tilt beneath me. "We have options," Matthew said quickly. "We can try to buy it outright, we can relocate, we can..." "We don't have that kind of capital," I interrupted. "That building is worth millions. We have excellent cash flow, but we don't have millions." "Then we get investors," Matthew said. "You know people now. People who believe in you." He was right. I did know investors. But going to them meant exposing my vulnerability, admitting that my empire was built on rented ground, acknowledging that I wasn't as secure as I'd appeared. I was spiraling into panic when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hi," a man's voice said. "This is Robert Garcia. I'm the investor who handles the development company buying the building. I've read your cookbook, eaten at your restaurants, and I want to make you an offer." We met the next day. Robert was young for a major investor, maybe 50, and he'd built his wealth through hospitality ventures. He was precise, intelligent, and genuinely interested in what I was building. "I want to back you," he said. "Full acquisition of your 3 restaurants into a larger brand. Funding for 5 more locations over 3 years. A percentage of equity, yes, but we make this into something that lasts." It was the dream. It was also terrifying. "I'd have to give up operational control," I said. "Some of it," Robert agreed. "But your voice, your vision, your food, that's non-negotiable. You're the product. I'm just the amplifier." I was sitting with him considering when something began to feel wrong. His questions became more specific. Not about recipes or operations but about my family. My background. My vulnerabilities. Are your family members going to be a problem? He asked casually. What do you mean? When you become very wealthy, which you will with this deal, are they going to try to interfere? 'Cause drama? I like to know these things. I should have been suspicious. I wasn't. I was excited and scared and overwhelmed, and I missed having someone who seemed to understand the business side and the family side simultaneously. They've been trying to manipulate me for years, I admitted. But I've learned to set boundaries. Good, Robert said. That will be important. 2 weeks later I found out why. Robert had done business with my mother's sister, my aunt who I barely knew, and through her he'd learned all our family dynamics. He'd deliberately timed his approach, waited for the moment of vulnerability when the building situation hit. And worse, he'd offered my mother money, a significant amount, to convince me to accept his deal. My mother called me and said she'd changed her mind about everything. She'd always known I could succeed. She was so proud. And by the way, didn't Robert seem like an excellent partner? Didn't his offer seem perfect? Wasn't she happy for me that the universe had provided a solution? The perfection of it made me suspicious. I called Robert directly. Did you offer my mother money? I asked. Silence. Then, I offered her financial support as a gesture of good faith toward your family. Without asking me. I thought it would ease tensions, he said. You manipulated me, I said coldly. You researched my vulnerabilities, waited for the moment I'd be desperate, and then positioned yourself as the savior while secretly buying off my family to make me feel supported. That's predatory. That's business, he said. That's cruelty, I replied. And I'm not interested. I hung up. And then I did something I should have done before accepting any offer. I hired a lawyer and actually asked real questions about what this deal would cost me. It would cost me everything. I'd be an employee in a corporation, my name and image commodified, my restaurants converted into a brand I couldn't control. I'd made money, yes, but I'd lose myself in the process. The cruelest part? My mother had accepted Robert's money despite knowing it was manipulation. When I confronted her about it, she didn't apologize. She just said, he was helping. That was the moment I made the decision. It was a Tuesday evening when I called my family together. Not at a restaurant. At my home. A beautiful space I'd built for myself, filled with plants and light and things that made me happy. I wanted them to see what my success actually looked like when it was just for me. My mother, Tasha, Deshawn, and my mother's sister all came. They thought it was a celebration. They thought I was announcing something good. I need to tell you something, I said. I'm banning you from my restaurants, effective immediately. If you come to any of my establishments, you'll be escorted out by security. And we're done as a family unless you're willing to go to therapy and actually address the toxicity. My mother stood up immediately. How dare you? I dare, I said quietly, because you've earned it. Every single one of you. Repeatedly. We're your family, Tasha said, crying. Then act like it, I responded. Right now, you're just people who've hurt me repeatedly and expect me to absorb it silently. I won't. You think you're better than us, my mother said. You think building a business makes you superior. I don't think I'm superior, I said, my voice steady despite the emotion crushing my chest. I think I'm finally brave enough to say no. And I won't apologize for that anymore. We gave you everything, my mother continued, her voice rising. We raised you, fed you, clothed you. And then you threw me out the moment it was inconvenient to keep me, I said. You told me I was worthless. You manipulated me with guilt and medical lies. You tried to sabotage my success. And when I stopped letting you, you acted shocked. Like I'd committed some great betrayal. The room went silent. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm going to give you 30 days to seek family therapy. Individual therapy. Something to address why you think it's normal to hurt people and expect forgiveness. At the end of those 30 days you're willing to do that work, we can try to rebuild something. But it's going to be slow and it's going to be conditional. And if we don't? Deshawn asked quietly. Then we're done, I said. Not in a dramatic way. Just done. You won't be welcome at my restaurants. You won't be part of my professional life. You'll be people I used to know. My mother stood up, her face twisted with rage and something else. Something that looked like grief. Then I guess we'll just be strangers, she said. She walked out. My aunt followed. Tasha looked torn between her allegiance to Mom and something she was trying to build with me. Deshaun stayed, sitting in silence. I love you, he said finally. But I don't know how to fix what broke. You don't have to fix it, I said. You just have to stop participating in it. You can be in my life. But you have to choose me. Actually choose me. Not as a backup plan or a financial resource, but as someone worth choosing. He left shortly after, promising to think about what I'd said. I sat alone in my beautiful home that I'd built from nothing and I cried. Not because I'd abandoned my family, but because I finally accepted that they'd never been able to see me the way I'd hoped. That sometimes love isn't enough. That protecting yourself sometimes means losing people. 6 months later, I turned down Robert's offer, secured independent funding from investors who believed in my vision without manipulation, and opened 2 new locations that both became instantly popular. The empire was real. And it was completely mine. My family never went to therapy. My mother never called except to ask for money, which I declined. Tasha tried to reach out a few times, each approach more desperate than the last. Eventually she stopped trying. But Deshaun did. He went to therapy. He spent months really examining his own role in the family system. And last month we had coffee, just coffee, no expectations, and talk like we were building something new from honest ground. I'm not asking you to forgive them, he said. I'm asking if maybe you can forgive yourself for not being able to fix people who don't want to be fixed. I already did, I told him. A long time ago. Mrs. Patterson passed away 6 months after I started Resilience. She never got to see the full empire I built, but she'd seen the beginning. At her funeral, I realized that sometimes family is chosen. Sometimes the people who truly see you aren't connected by blood. Matthew and I got engaged last month. We're building something that started as partnership and became something much deeper. A relationship based on seeing each other completely and choosing each other anyway. His uncle Richard recovered financially and is now an advisor on my board. The success is real. The restaurants are thriving. I'm profitable, respected, and secure. But the real empire I built wasn't brick and mortar. It was boundaries. It was the ability to say no without guilt. It was understanding that my worth isn't determined by my usefulness to people who've already chosen to hurt me. People ask me sometimes if I regret walking away from my family. The honest answer is no. I regret that they couldn't grow with me. I regret that love wasn't enough to overcome their desire to control me. But I don't regret saving myself. Every night when I walk through my restaurants and see them full of people enjoying food I've created, I think about that girl who was told she was worthless. And I tell her something I needed to hear back then. You were never the problem. And you were always going to be enough. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you're the one being made to feel small by people who should be lifting you up, I need you to hear this. Your life doesn't have to look like theirs. Your worth isn't determined by their approval. And sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is just leave. Build your empire. Not for them. For you. Because you are enough. You always were. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that they're worthy of building their own empire. And remember, your life is yours to build.